Everyone, it's Miss Helen. Our guest today is Tim Lightyear. We're going to jump into release strategy. He's got a new album coming out. Interesting fact about his background. You want to stick around for that also. He's a producer and he's been building a special project, his recording studio, and he'll tell us all about it during this episode. This episode, we want to welcome Tim Lightyear to the podcast. Tim, super excited to talk to you. You've got so much going on, and music has played such a role in your life. Just to kind of introduce you, you were part of the Shane Smith and the Saints.
Yeah, for probably like 6 or 7 years there.
Now you're moving into 2024 with a whole bunch going on. We have a lot to talk about. You've got a new album coming out, and just in the first quarter, you've got a couple of singles that will come out. You're going to drop a video. I did want to talk about some of the streaming songs that you have out already, and I did
Sure.
like those. Roll On was a really good one.
Thank you. Yeah. That was actually the first song that I put out as TimLightyear. So it probably dropped 2 years ago now.
2021, I believe.
Oh yeah,
Essentially.
I guess it's 2024 now. I forget that.
So I really like the lyrics in there. What was the inspiration behind that? Was it a particular person, a particular situation? Where do you pull from? That's a good question too. Where you pull from with your songwriting?
Well, with Roll On, I wrote it kind of during the whole COVID shutdown thing, and it's kind of just about how it seemed like, and still sort of seems like, nobody really knows what they're talking about, or uh, everybody has a differing opinion, and just how kind of it doesn't really matter, and you should just do whatever you got to do. So that's kind of the general thought there, is just like, okay, sure, there's stuff on the news and there's stuff on social media and blah blah blah, whatever, and just, I don't know, try not to pay too much attention to that kind of stuff, I guess, is kind of the deeper meaning of the song, I suppose. But yeah, in terms of songwriting itself, it's such a tough question to answer, because I think songs can be so many different things. Some of my tunes are super personal, some of them are way less personal. Like Roll On is not a super personal song, it was just more of a feeling that I had at that time. But there are other songs, like on my album, that are really, really personal and come from a super deep place. And so, yeah, I think there's a, I don't even know who said this, but there's a quote of "write what you know." And so I just try and write what I know.
So the new album is coming out. Debut album will be coming out later on. It'll be coming out in May, entitled
Hmm.
"All My Old Friends." And I did get to listen to that single, the title cut. Great. I mean, that's such a strong song.
Thank you. Yeah. I'm currently trying to figure out my like album release show, which is why I don't have a specific date set at this time.
Mhm.
Been struggling with that whole thing, but yeah. So basically, whenever I left the Saints and moved back to Dallas, I started a band, my current band, and it was my bass player, who's still my bass player. Is I went to high school with him, and then my older brother was my drummer, and then Drew Herrickle, who plays keys for Cody Jinks. He also went to my high school, and he produced it and plays with me from time to time. And then the next drummer that I got was like the first guy I was ever in a band with, and so it was basically just all my old friends getting together to help me make a record and start a band. So it just seemed appropriate.
I love that. Where did you go to high school? Where did you grow up at?
I'm originally from Rockwall, Texas, which is outside of Dallas, and I actually grew up in between Heath and Forney, so super tiny little towns. So there's two high schools in Rockwall, and that group of people all kind of went to either of those two high schools.
So, did music play a role in your life at a young age? Because I know you play so many instruments. So, at what point did music really start playing a role in your life and you got inspired to start picking up all the instruments that you play?
Yeah, so my whole family pretty much is musical. My dad plays guitar and sings. My mom plays piano. My oldest brother plays guitar and sings and plays a bunch of instruments. And my second oldest brother is like a drumline guy, and he's on the drum line for a band called Odessa. It's like an EDM band. And so, I mean, I was about 10 when I started playing. Like I was in band in school, so I was doing like percussion in school, and I was doing guitar lessons at home and piano lessons. And I've always just kind of been a band nerd, so it's just kind of always been a part of my life at varying degrees. Throughout high school, I was in bands and I was in actual band at school, and then got out of high school and was in several different bands, and then moved to Austin to do the Saints thing for a long time. And so it's just always kind of been there for the majority of my life. Yeah.
Okay, so I want to move back to the album, but I did want to expand on that while you brought up some of your background and where you grew up. That's always important for those that listen to the podcast to get to know. And I like to dig into the hometown stuff. I'm a small town girl myself. So it is your debut album, and you've got some singles that are going to be dropping. First one's going to drop in March.
Yeah, so Misunderstood will come out in March, and then Old Friends, which is sort of the title track, sort of not, it will drop in April.
So the songs that you picked for the album, like approximately, I mean, maybe you're still in the process of working on how many tracks will be on the album, but are these songs that you've had for quite a while, or just give us a little preview of what the listeners and the fans can expect coming up from the new album?
Um, so I started working on the album around the time that I moved home from Boston back to Dallas in 2019. Um, and the album will have 10 tracks. There's three singles from the album, one of which is already out. I dropped it last year. It's called Make My Way to You, which will also have a music video for. And then, yeah, Misunderstood will be in March. Old Friends will be in April. And then, yeah, I mean, I don't know. I've just been kind of writing the album for a long time. So back to your earlier question about songwriting, just to kind of tie it back in, I do feel like, at least for me personally, there are some songs that happen in an instant. So like Misunderstood, I wrote in like half an hour. I came home from something and was just feeling misunderstood. And so I just wrote that song in half an hour. And then there's other songs like on my album, there's a song called How It Goes Sometimes, which I've been writing for like 6 years,
Wow.
and I also think there's some songs that you write in half an hour that you've been writing internally for 6 years. Like Misunderstood, I feel like I had been feeling how I wrote that song for a really long time, but I just never was able to put it down. And then it just kind of like a lightning bolt hit me. So, you know, I, I mean, actively working on the songs, I'd say for the last 4 or 5 years. But who knows how long I've been writing them. You know what I mean?
Wow, I love that. That's one of the most unique descriptions of songwriting that I've ever heard on the podcast, or even back when I was in radio talking to songwriters. I love that. That's good stuff right there. And I did listen to, because you previously had recorded "Make My Way to You," and I did have that on my list to talk to you about, if you don't mind, since that's going to be your video.
Yeah. Yeah.
But to me, I just really picked up on that song because there's so much emotion and there's so much like a call to action, but yet it's so chill.
Yeah. Well, I'm glad you like it. Thank you for checking it out. So there's a band actually from Houston called Krungbin. They're like a weird indie, like instrumental band, and all of their music is very like laid back and chill, kind of like that. And they're a huge influence on that song in particular. But yeah, I don't know. I think that's another one of those songs where, so we found out we were having our first son, and I've been married for a while at that point, but I was just kind of feeling, I don't know, sentimental about the people in my life and the people that were about to come into my life. And so I was just trying to kind of channel that. And um it also comes from kind of a place of self-sabotage, and just kind of the struggle of you know coming of age, and being a man in the world, and what all that means, and being a husband and being a father and all these different things. And that's kind of what the whole album is about too. But yeah, the song is a love song, not one person in particular, but a lot of people that I love a lot.
And so what's the setting for the video?
So we filmed part of it in Arizona, we filmed part of it in Dallas, and then we filmed part of it here at my new house in Royce City. And it's basically, not to give the whole thing away, but it's basically, the concept of the music video is basically my son's imagination of this journey that we go on to find something that he loves, which is a cake. It's super goofy. I'm inspired by like Dave Grohl and Foo Fighters with their like goofy music videos where it's like you have this sentimental kind of love song type of thing within the music videos, goofy, or this like heavy rock song, and then the music videos more tongue in cheek. I like that kind of thing, and so the like it's me and my band, and we're dressed up in these goofy costumes, and we're traveling all around, and we did all this puppetry and all, these toy cars, and it's a whole thing. It took like a year to make. Um, but yeah, it was filmed in Arizona and Dallas mainly.
Well, that's exciting. That'll be something really to look forward to.
I was reading the other day that it takes at least $1 million to break an artist. That's a ton of change, and it can feel overwhelming. But with social media leveling the playing field, you just need an effective strategy to release your music. Check out Release Rocket to ensure your single does not die after release day. You've already put time, effort, and tons of money into writing and recording your album. Let the guys at Release Rocket keep your new release alive.
So another hat that you wear, well, that'll segue good into your producer hat. You produce.
Yeah.
And I guess, what's one thing as a producer that something that's always solid in a song and a project that you're working on?
It's a good question. The initial thing that I'm always looking for when someone sends me like a batch of songs and says, "Hey, these are the songs that I have. Which ones are you excited about?" And a buddy of mine, Darren Jones, he sent me whenever I first started working with me, or whenever I first started working with him, he sent me like 10 or 20 songs, and he was like, "Which songs do you want to work on?" Which was a really cool thing as a producer to get to have a say, which I often do, but to have a say of like he was basically saying like, pick whichever ones you want to do and we'll do those. And so I just picked the ones that kind of spoke to me the most. And I think most of the time I'm just looking for songs that, I don't know, make me feel something, especially when it's a work tape or a demo. It's like, okay, I don't have to put the pieces together for this thing to do something. It's already doing something in its most raw form. Not to say that I don't like working on songs where we do have to piece it together, but the ones that I like the most are the ones that just, they're automatically, there's some sort of magic in them, whether that's a catchy hook or a really good lyric or anything. I don't know, just something to latch onto. I'll be honest, I'm not the kind of producer that's like all into the gear and all into like, I know what I need to know about gear, but I'm not like gonna drool over somebody's
Mhm.
compressor or whatever. To me, it's what's on the other side of the microphone that's most important. There's some of the most famous records and best records that were recorded with a bunch of SM57s, and they're great records. And so, to me, I think the thing that I'm most excited about is to have my own place where I get to do my own stuff and not really have to worry about that side of things as much. My peers in the recording world, the production world, I'm constantly debating with them about what's really important to have around. And to me, having a space that is comfortable is kind of number one. And then all that other stuff kind of comes after the fact. But gear definitely has changed a lot over the years, but I just try not to let it get in the way.
Yeah. Speaking of places, not that you have enough going on already, but you've jumped into building your own studio, Cosmic Mama Studios outside of Dallas. That's got to be huge for you.
I cannot tell you how excited I am to finally have my own spot. I'm currently, my wife is, me and her are both so anxious to get it done because I'm sitting in my dining room right now, which is full of studio gear, and my whole house is just full of studio gear because we don't have anywhere to put it right now. But yeah, started in October, and we should be done here in the next couple months. And I am so unbelievably excited to have that space, not only because I'm finally going to have my own place that I get to set up how I want, and I can kind of gear the process how I want, and I can do all that kind of stuff. But I'm also going to get all my crap out of my house and into my studio, which I'm desperate for. I'm really excited. It's going to have Murphy beds in the studio so that when artists come from out of town, they have a place they can crash. It's going to have control room, live room, ISO booth, which I don't know if you know this, but at my old house before I moved out here, I was basically running my studio out of the sunroom which was also the laundry room of my house. So I had like this tiny little control room and this sunroom, which had a washer dryer in it. And I was basically just making records out of there. And there was like a window into the kitchen, and it was, a pretty chaotic space. So to finally have something that's separate from the house and isolated how I need it to be, it's going to be a dream come true.
Wow. And just being able to be hands-on with the design and how everything's gonna operate.
Yeah. I mean, I've been doing a lot of the construction myself alongside my buddy Jason. So we demoed the whole. I mean, it was a pre-existing structure. We had to demo the whole thing out and do a new concrete slab. And I mean, I've learned far more about soundproofing than I ever cared to. But it's been a very involved process. But it's going to be really, really awesome when it's done.
Is there anything you don't do?
Uh, I don't know.
I was just
Show up on
you are
show up
it's
on
just
time. I don't know.
yeah, you're just amazing. I mean, with all the stuff that you're doing, how do you time management has to be something that you work hard on.
It's something that I wish I was better at, I'll be honest. It's there's definitely a lot going on. I have surrounded myself with a lot of people that help me. I have an assistant for my studio stuff, Ryan Glenn. He helps me with a lot of stuff. And then obviously my wife helps me with a lot of stuff too. And then Google Cal is my best friend. That helps a ton. But yeah, it's a lot, but it's you know, I do feel like nowadays, I don't know, at least for me, if you don't wear multiple hats, you're just you're not going to be able to make a living. I feel like.
That is so true. That's so true in so many different lifestyles. And then you're also on the road. You're going out doing shows.
Yeah, last year we were in California and Utah and all over the place. And this year I'm going to be more strategic about how far we're going to go because I got a second kid on the way. I'm building the studio. I think I overstretched myself, and I realized I need to focus more regionally because I can't make it to Utah 4 times a year. I just can't do it. It just doesn't make sense. So I need to go to Amarillo 4 times a year instead of Utah four
Mhm.
times a year. So, but yeah, it's a lot between, you know, running the studio, making records, shows, making my own records, and on top of that, having a family, and then trying to find time for something not musically related as well. So it's a lot, but it's a rich, full life, and I wouldn't trade it for anything. So
Absolutely. That's for sure. And I feel like too that, with your experience and everything you've done and then the achievements that you have to come with the studio and more producing, do you have the chance to teach or mentor some of the other artists coming up? Like I know you produced Kyle's album.
yeah, it's a great question. I try to offer up a perspective. I wouldn't say that I can teach or mentor necessarily because it's a constantly evolving thing. But like my assistant Ryan, I feel like he's learned a lot since he started working with me. And then with artists that I work with, so that's one of the reasons that the studio is called Cosmic Mama, is because, not to sound goofy or whatever, but I think that there's a very like motherly nature to my studio, right? We cook meals, people stay here. A lot of the artists that I work with become more than just clients. It's like it's people that I have ongoing relationships with. And I'm also trying to not be the type of place where people just come in and we press record and then send them on their merry way. It's like, okay, well, I kind of want to work with you on how you're going to release your music because my name's on it. So, I'd like to have some sort of say in what's going on. I don't want you to just blow your opportunities here because you're being irresponsible or whatever. And so I try and work with artists on more than just making a record, but I don't know if I would call it mentoring or teaching. I would just say that I like to work with them.
Yeah, you kind of take it to another level, like you said, just coming in, recording, pressing a button, and moving on down the road. I like the idea that you take some time. Is there a rhyme or reason behind your release strategy?
Over the years, basically, I think the main thing I've learned is to try and stay up in the forefront for as long as you can, and to do consistent releases. So like, I'm going to release lyric videos and different things kind of in tandem with my songs actually coming out so that there's multiple things to keep people excited about and not just here's a song, here's a song, here's a song. It's kind of just to try and stay relevant while your release is all happening.
Man, you just got so much going on. I'm so excited for what's gonna be coming once all this music starts coming out. It's just like you're just gonna be dropping, and then your show's coming up. Really, really looking forward to it. And again, the album
Thank
drops
you.
sometime. We'll be looking for it starting, into April. For we'll be talking about it here on the podcast, I'm sure, and following up on
Cool.
the singles coming out. And so, as far as your singles that'll be coming out, I'm sure they'll be going out to streaming. Any plans for any radio releases?
Well, that's another great question. I don't think this is just my own personal assessment of my music. I don't think that my music would do great on Texas radio. Um, so I'm going to put some efforts into streaming, uh, you know, playlist curators and stuff like that.
Mhm.
And I'll reach out to the radio DJs that I know personally, Craig Vaughn and JR and those guys that I'm buddies with, and we'll see if they want to put it on. But I don't want to spend the kind of money that it takes to promote a song to Texas radio. I don't really want to do that. I think that my music would be better served elsewhere, or my money would be better served elsewhere for my music, I guess. But yeah, streaming is kind of my main thing.
Yes, I can see that. So, anything else that we haven't covered one thing I want to ask you is how old is your little boy and what's his name?
My son Freddie, he is 2 years old, and I've got another boy on the way in May, right after, like kind of mid May, right after the album comes out. So that's one of the reasons that I'm like aimed at May, trying to get it all figured out, is because as soon as that kid shows up, it's like everything, you know, focuses on that for the first few months.
Well, you're going to be busy,
Um,
busy.
yeah, it's going to be a wacky year, but I'm excited about it. Yeah, I don't think there's anything we missed. And if there is, there's enough there. We covered enough. I feel like I don't know. There's a lot going on. That's all I can say.
I think it's a wonderful thing. I'm so excited for what's to come. We'll be following along and excited that you produced Kyle's album and his music as well. He's got some good stuff coming up. So, one last
Yeah.
question before we wrap it up on a lighter note. If you were a cocktail, what would you be?
Ooh, that's a good one. Probably a spicy margarita, honestly. I want to say
Okay.
something tame like an old fashioned, but I just know that's not accurate. So I'm going to go spicy margarita.
Let's say margarita. I like that. Well, Tim Lightyear, thank you so much for being on the podcast. And real quick, tell everyone where they can find your information.
Yeah, it's timlightyear.com, at Tim Lightyear on socials, Tim Lightyear on Spotify, Apple Music, all that kind of stuff. And yeah, look out for Cosmic Mama Studios. And thank you guys so much for having me on. I really, really, really appreciate it.
Oh, it's been a joy. You're something to get excited about. So thank you so much, Tim, for coming on the podcast.
Yeah, thank you.